And for those who are on Zoom, we're going to go around and introduce some people. And Mr. Stan Ingram, who is the attorney who prosecutes cases for the board. Dr. Michelle Owens, who is secretary of the board. Myself, Dr. Ann Ray, president of the board. Ms. Morris, who represents us from the Attorney General's office. Ken Cleveland, who is our medical director. And you're just new. Okay. All right.
Yeah, Dr. McClendon up there.
Good deal.
And Dr. McClendon,
Dr. McClendon, who is on Zoom. Okay. And I see 2 cases for us. And no old business that we know of. Okay. We'll begin with the personal appearance of Dr. Handi Sakaria, Department of Orthopedic Surgery in UMC in Jackson, Mississippi. And,
Good afternoon.
Is he on the Zoom?
I am.
Right. Okay. Can we enlarge his picture? Can we shrink the board picture and enlarge his? Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. I see here reason for appearance says physician does not meet the licensure requirements for a permanent license. He has not completed requirements as listed in the regulation. Take this off. Rule 1.1 licensure by credentials. Applicants who graduated from the International Medical School must present documentation of having completed either 3 or more years of ACGME approved postgraduate training in the United States or training in Canada approved by the RCPSC, or 1 year of ACGME approved postgraduate training in the United States or Canada approved by the RCPSC. Be currently boarded by a specialty board recognized by the ABMS and must have approval by the board. Okay.
I think it would be best to let's hear from the applicant to explain, at least for the record, what he has achieved and what's the basis for his request.
Thank you all for hearing me out today. So yes, I do not meet the eligibility criteria for a full permanent license due to the fact that I did my medical school and my residency outside of the United States. I have finished 4 fellowships here in the United States, but unfortunately none were ACGME accredited. Some were kind of society accredited, but not ACGME accredited. I have been here at UMC for the past 2 years now. I have been working as a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, treating kids with different musculoskeletal injuries and disorders. Over the past 2 years, I have not had any issues or complaints so far in my work here. I have been heavily involved in resident training and education, in addition to medical student training and education. Joined my partners into the research effort here, and we have recently also presented at both the Scoliosis Research Society and the International Society for Advancing Spine Techniques. I have, in these past 2 years, I have become a member and POSNA's Global Outreach Committee, in addition to the Scoliosis Research Society Adult Scoliosis Deformity Committee. I have also taken on some more roles at UMC in filling some gaps when it comes to adult spine Unfortunately, we have some gaps in adult spine coverage, so I am shifting part of my practice to fill that gap when it comes to patient care and also resident education, as I have been also trained in adult spine surgery.
Thank you for that. And I see some letters of recommendation from Dr. O'Mara. And what's your association with Dr. O'Mara?
It's not a personal association, but Dr. O'Mara is, I think, assistant to Vice Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor's office.
He's Associate Vice Chancellor for Clinical Affairs at UMC.
Okay. Do you operate with him? Or
I
he's
do
just
not.
what all you do? Okay.
I'll talk. Yeah.
And see, Brunson you a letter. We all know Dr. Brunson. And Dr. Kristen Kelly Leach.
She is my division head, so I work with her very closely.
Okay. And Dr. George Russell.
Dr. George Russell is my chairman.
These are all glowing letters.
Thank you.
So I guess what you're looking for is a waiver to the usual requirements to be granted full licensure.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have just a couple of questions. Can you just kind of summarize what your current activities are at UMC?
Sure. So I serve and work as full attending with full privileges at UMC. I make all my decision making. I am in the operating room, clinic, and on the floor taking care of children and adolescents, and more recently also adult spine patients. I work, alone in the OR unless we are doing a combo case with another attending. I don't have any direct supervision. I work with residents and medical students who rotate on pediatric orthopedics and now more recently on adult spine. So I do lectures and I train them in the OR as well. They also rotate with me in clinic where we see different pathologies. Involved in research projects with multiple medical students and residents as well.
So your primary assignment, though, is within pediatric surgery?
So the primary assignment is pediatric orthopedic surgery. This is what I started doing here, and like I said, more recently I have been filling a void for adult spine surgery as well. But the main block, more than 80%, is pediatric orthopedics.
You do spines, fractures on children. What do you do?
I do.
Scoliosis.
I do pediatric scoliosis, pediatric spine deformity, early onset scoliosis. I do neuromuscular complaints, hip dysplasia, fractures, casting, the entire aspect of pediatric orthopedic surgery.
Can't hear. Arlene, is that him or us?
One second.
She's sending him a message. He might not be speaking in his microphone.
We're having a little difficulty hearing.
Oh,
Right now?
Can you hear me now?
So we can hear you, but the quality of the sound has changed.
Okay, I really haven't.
We were
done-
hearing you loud and clear a minute ago.
I really haven't done anything on my end. Is it better now if I go a little bit closer? Can you hear me better now?
Yes,
Okay,
much better.
thank you. All right, I'll
Yes.
speak louder. Do you want me to repeat what I said last?
That would be great because we missed probably about 3/4 of that.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. Okay. So I treat all aspects of pediatric orthopedic disorders, whether it is pediatric spine deformity from early onset scoliosis to neuromuscular syndromic. I treat hip dysplasia. I treat club feet. I treat all sorts of pediatric orthopedic fractures, joint contractures, the entire gamut of pediatric orthopedic deformities. And more recently, I've also been covering part of adult spine surgeries. So far, it's been adult spine trauma. I am involved
Dr.
with.
McClendon? I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'd just to make sure that I repeat everything. And residents work with me both in clinic and in the operating room for both pediatric spine and the adult spine deformity. And we're also involved with many medical students and residents in ongoing research projects.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. McClendon, do you have a question or comment?
Doctor, you have a stellar experience and training, and it's important, as we evaluate your case, that we go through any marks, any negative marks. You do have a case against you from 2017 that you appropriately documented. Is that accurate, about Joey Terry in Jefferson County, Alabama?
Correct.
Could you give just a little more detail about that? Obviously, you
Sure.
summarized it some, but in the paperwork. But could you give us just a little more information about that case?
Sure. So this happened when I was a fellow at UAB doing adult spine training. It was towards the kind of beginning of the spine fellowship there. So the case took place in November of 2015. I was involved in assisting my attending during that procedure. It was a spine osteotomy for deformity. It was a patient with multiple procedures before, including many surgeries by different physicians and many surgeries by the attending I was training with. The patient later on claims that he has issues as far as, and I don't know how in details I can go into this, but he claims that he has developed a foot drop after surgery, and he claims other things related to the spine care. I have been deposed already. The case is still in discovery phase. They have set a date for the trial, which is July of next year. I have not heard anything about the case since I was deposed in December. I'm assuming that they're still working on discovery. The patient is still alive, obviously, and his complaints, at least from my experience and my answer to them, are known and well-described complications of a multi-revision spine osteotomy. Unfortunately, my attending passed away since, so I have to deal with this by myself next year.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No board certification, is that correct?
No.
Dr. Sakiria, do you have any, board certifications from, another country?
No, in Lebanon, we don't have a kind of a board certification in the current sense. And I left immediately after residency, so I did not have time to sit for kind of the regional one called Arab Board. I will be eligible to sit for the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery in 3 years from now via the academic track to board eligibility, which is if a non-board eligible orthopedic surgeon is involved in the training and education of orthopedic residents in an ACGME accredited program, then after 5 years, I can apply for that eligibility and sit for part 1.
How many pediatric orthopedic surgeons do we have in Mississippi?
I couldn't tell you, I know.
I actually picked that up. So I actually looked that up just a second ago. There are right now, so there are.
So he doesn't have any ACGME postgraduate training. Correct?
Right,
That
he's
is
on
correct.
track for
And he
that.
is not board certified.
That's correct.
Man.
But he's done 4.
Just, and y'all probably saw it, but he was an exception to get a limited institutional license when he originally came here to allow him to start work at UMC.
Right,
And so now he wants an unrestricted license
So he's been operating under a LIL all this time.
under a
Mhm.
limited institutional. Yeah.
He's board eligible in this current situation he's in.
Not quite, right? Not quite board eligible just yet.
board eligible in 3 years to sit for the boards?
Right.
Okay,
So he's on track to become board eligible through the pathway that's designed for individuals who may not be, that are at teaching institutions and who are.
right. So, do you have contract stay with the university for 3 years or?
Uh-oh.
Lost them again.
Lost the audio. Hang on.
Check his audio.
Is he muted or unmuted?
Just ask the question, even with full licensure, if he has that, he can't go anywhere else and.
Right.
And work either, because he's not gonna go to St. Dominic and they're not gonna give him privileges without boards probably.
Thumbs up if you are, give us a thumbs up if you are you at UMC physical plant right now? If you are, thumbs up. Check the UMC Connect internet and make sure that it hasn't blinked on you. Check that connection. Because sometimes it'll blink and you'll lose, okay.
I want to check his
You got a call-in number, he can do the audio through the phone?
So is his position at the university in jeopardy without full license?
So that, I could not say that because I know for sure that there is an institutional policy about the process for which a person would be expected to become board certified at the institution. But I also know that in critical need areas, there are waivers for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have to be, that's kind of reviewed on a case-by-case basis.
We'll look
So
back
can't
at-
say for sure.
Look back at Claude's letter and see.
But there are not a ton of pediatric orthopedic surgeons. There are not many. And the truth is that there are actually folks out in town who come into Mississippi who are not Mississippi residents, but who have Mississippi licensure, who come in and work,
Mhm.
you know, in clinics to help meet that need.
Right. Well, I knew when I was in medical school, there was more.
Mhm.
And then there were none.
Like specifically Peds Ortho. There are not a ton.
You know what orthopedics means? Straighten children.
Okay, I got you. I'm gonna put you on speakerphone. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. I have a question for you. In terms of your position at the university, do you have any pressure to acquire a full license?
It's definitely preferable. Nobody has pressured me so far, but my understanding is my work there is linked to my ability to have a license. And my understanding is that a limited institutional license can only be given 1 year at a time for a total of 5 years, which means if I can only be here at 5 years if I fail to obtain a full license. And if I can't get a new license, then then yes, my job, then I'll have to, look somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been on limited licensure?
2 years, and I just started my third one.
Okay, so the UMC policy is that you really need to go ahead and get a full license to stay there and finish your track.
Yes, ma'am.
Or what's their time limit on that?
My understanding is that the time limit is the time limit related to the limited institutional license, which is 5 years. They're not pressuring me specifically about the board's eligibility because they know that takes at least 5 years to be able to sit for the exam, but to be able to stay there for 5 years or more so that I can do the part 2, the collection part, which takes 2 years after part 1, I need to have a license, and the limited institutional license only goes 5 years.
The standard requirement for UMC is that if you are not board certified at the time of your hiring, that you obtain board certification within 5 years is the standard contractual requirement. Again, in critical need areas, they will make adjustments for that. So what he says is true about the 5 years is the typical standard language.
In order to get to the next stage, you really need to be licensed.
But
Well, yeah, it looks like
but that's their language, not ours.
Correct.
I was fixing to say, I think the statute, I'll go quickly and go look at it. I think the statute doesn't put a cap on the number of years that you can have a
A
live.
limited, really?
It used to.
Yeah. There may not be a cap from us, there may be a cap from the
Now that I don't know.
different steps within this orthopedic board certification process, but and the UMC's interpretation of that for their people, right?
What I was speaking to specifically was just about the timeline in which it's standard for a person who is non-board certified, regardless of their status with respect to eligibility to achieve board certification. They give you a 5-year window.
Okay.
That's typically the norm.
And so you need the license to get to the next step for your orthopedic certification.
Yes, ma'am. So we have 2 parts: the written exam and then the case collection.
Okay.
The case collection, yeah. So I from what I read on the MSBML website is that the limited institution will only be given for 5 years.
Yeah, I don't think we have a limit on that anymore. I guess the question is do you need in order to do your case collection, do you need a full license or just a temporary?
No, I don't think the board collection is limited to the license. My understanding was that the limited has a 5-year cap from what I read. But if there's no cap on the limited, then I don't think the board really cares about the kind of license as long as the case is getting. As far as my understanding is concerned.
Yeah, well, if you had already completed that first step, if you had been able to sit for and pass your written right now, you could be collecting cases for your orals, right? I mean, if you had already gone through that step, so the license itself doesn't inhibit that because you are practicing your,
Yes.
Your craft, your subspecialty right now.
Yes, ma'am.
All the horses.
Yes, sir.
The rule says pursuant to section 732523 Mississippi Code, a limited institutional license must be renewed annually after such review as the board considers necessary. A graduate of an international medical school so licensed may hold a limited institutional license no longer than 5 years. Let me look on 732523.
Dr. McClendon, you're okay, just a second.
Just a second. The statute goes one step further and states a graduate of a foreign medical school so licensed may hold a limited institutional license no longer than 5 years. However, any graduate of a foreign medical school so licensed and employed by any state institution on January 1, 1981 shall not be subject to the 5-year limitation. That was a personal act. That was a private piece of legislation. I remember that quite well.
1981.
1981.
So is that guy still
But
on
also,
temporary
it was the
license?
guy that the
40
legislature
years
wanted
ago.
to slip in, and they did a very good job. But there's a second sentence added to that. In addition, the State Board of Medical Licensure, in its discretion, may waive the 5-year limitation on limited institutional licenses for any graduate of the foreign medical school who holds such license. So the 5 years cap is in the statute, but it can be waived.
We could decide to do this every year ad nauseum.
He didn't, at 1981 is just,
Uh,
I'll just take it out.
Okay. Dr. McClendon, it's hard for me to see that little big picture view at the end of the room. Did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, just to make sure that we've fully disclosed from Dr. Sakari. Dr. Sakari, just if we end up moving forward, I just want to make sure that we've asked a few questions of you. And has there ever been in residency training, and since you become an attending, other than that lawsuit, has there ever been any disciplinary action from a residency chair, chief of medicine, MEC, peer review committee, any overseeing disciplinary position at any stage of your training? Has there ever been any disciplinary action or letter of concern about your care?
Not at all, other than the pending case, none whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Well, I would just say that if y'all do want to give him an unrestricted license, you need to make sure you outline the special reasons why you do, or we will be flooded with requests.
Yeah, we got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to ascertain here too is just what is the imperative. There's no detriment to withdrawing this application and staying on the temporary licensure track as far as your employment at UMC is concerned, or your board certification pathway. Is that correct? I mean, if you just do the temporary license over and over until you get your board certification, is that a problem?
So far, no. I don't know if the institution will ever change, but so far, no. I have not had any. I don't think that the board, the American Board of Surgery, I don't think it cares. UMMC, at least my department has not mentioned anything. They definitely want me to get a full license, but it has never gotten to a point where my job is linked
Okay,
to the full license.
so did they
so
request,
far.
did they request that of you specifically?
What's that?
That, did they make the request specifically that you obtain a full license?
So in my original contract, yes, it stipulates that I have to have a full license. But when I applied in 2018, I was denied full license. Then because there was a significant shortage of pediatric orthopedic surgeons,
Okay,
they were okay with the limited institutional license.
okay. Are they still okay with that, or have they told you you need to get a full license?
I think so far they're still okay with that because their understanding was just like mine, that there was a 5-year cap on the limited institutional license. But I have not had a discussion with them about what the next step would be after those 5 years, honestly.
Okay. We may need to discuss this a little bit.
Agreed.
Uh,
So can we just close the meeting to consider whether to go into executive session in this matter? That's suitable.
Dr. Owens has moved to close the meeting to consider going to executive session. Dr. McClendon,
Second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. I guess I need to,
We can do Dr. McClendon by speakerphone in here if we
Okay.
need to.
That'd
Yeah.
be great.
That'd probably
Let's
be
do
the easiest
that.
thing to do.
That works.
David, I'll call you on my phone.
Okay.
Doctor, stand by.
sure.
My man.
No, this one's mine. Yours I'll set over there. Did you pick it up and put it on?
No.
Dr. Lippincott?
John Day, sorry,
maybe I did.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Charlie.
I'm sorry, I said it on there. Okay. Dr. Sakari, are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're returning to our regular meeting session. We are out of executive session. Dr. Owens will read our decision.
With respect to Dr. Sakari's request for a waiver, the executive committee has made the decision to deny the waiver request at this time.
Dr. Sakari, we admire the work you're doing and applaud your efforts to get into the board certification and encourage you to do that. We're not really changing anything for you, not causing any impediments for you. We'd like to see you further down the road toward board certification. And if you have any questions about that, please call Dr. Cleveland. And he'd be happy to sit down and talk to you at length about that.
Okay. Thank you all. But just for me to kind of clarify that there is no 5-year cap on the limited institutional agreement.
There's a 5-year cap, but you can come back and extend that with us if you need to.
I would
Okay.
encourage him to call.
But talk to Dr. Cleveland and talk about all the specifics of that, please.
Will do.
Okay, now this is not reportable or anything. It's just process, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Okay. Case number 2, we have the personal assurance of Gaurav Kistangari from Collierville, Tennessee. And this is case physician making application for licensure who does not meet the requirements and statutes. He has not completed licensure by the appropriate ACGME approved postgraduate training in the United States. Dr. Kistangari, did I say that right?
That's very much right.
Very much right. How do you say it?
Kistangari, that's right.
Okay, good. Score 1 for Ann today. Okay. And I'm going to allow you to tell us why you're here.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you. First of all, thanks for giving me this opportunity. I applied for the license, and then I came to know that based on the criteria, I'm not eligible for the license. So, I asked if there is an opportunity to, tell you what's the reason I was not board certified. Basically, just to tell you a little bit about myself, I finished my residency in internal medicine in an ACGME accredited program almost 10 years back in a Cleveland Clinic hospital. And then following that, I was employed by Cleveland Clinic. I was an academic hospitalist and working with the medical students and training residents at the same institution. And I did that for almost 10 years. And then I decided to do subspecialty in gastroenterology. And while I was doing my training in gastroenterology, I was board certified internal medicine doctor, which expired in 2018. And my fellowship program was, it was a busy fellowship program. And I initially intended to take the boards, but I could not. I mean, to be honest, at the time I had a baby, I was in the fellowship program, and my wife was diagnosed with cancer at the same time. So it was a little bit tough time, but at the same time, everything went well. But I did not recertify in my internal medicine boards. But I'm actually now eligible for because I knew that I'm going to take boards in GI. Right now, I have GI boards scheduled on November 5th of this year. And I had no gaps in training. And as I mentioned, I just finished my GI fellowship at the ACGME accredited program at the University of Buffalo. So I will be soon board certified in GI, and I have signed a job in Mississippi, and my start date, the tentative start date is November 1st. And I have already have a license in the state of Tennessee, where I'm right now. But it will be really helpful if I can, start practicing in the state of Mississippi. And I don't know how to put this forward, but I'm sure I will meet the requirement, and once I get board certified.
Okay. Have you applied for the specs exam?
No, I did not.
Okay. The way the statute reads is you need to have, if you haven't had some sort of certification, special examination in 10 years, is that you need the specs exam, which can be given in a number of locations. And notice on that's probably a couple of weeks. It can be given right here within 1.5 miles of this building, as a matter of fact. And we're not the only state that requires that. State of Alabama, if you were to apply there today, you would be required to take the specs exam.
Mm-hmm.
or get your other certification done. You're going to sit for the GI boards in November?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and you're supposed to start work November 1.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Are your employers, the group you're joining, are they aware of this problem?
Yes, they are. And I was, primarily hired to cover on the Mississippi side, and they have employment even and a part of my work was on the Tennessee side. So they are aware, and they are aware of the fact that we had this meeting today, and they are very much looking forward to know what's going to happen too.
Dr. Owens?
So does in medicine, the Board of Medicine, they don't require you to be boarded in your primary area of medicine when you're a subspecialist. So you can be boarded in gastroenterology and not be boarded in internal medicine. You don't have to maintain simultaneously. Is that correct?
That's true. And I have, as far as I know, I called ABIM before my boards were about to get expired. And what they told me was, the board certification, it's okay to maintain a subspecialty board. And and I know colleagues of mine who are cardiologists, and I even spoke to them before that happened, and they are only maintaining their subspecialty boards, and they're not medicine certified anymore. And I just want to say that in terms of examination, I've been giving, because it's a ACGME accredited training program, we have yearly examinations and have passed those exams, which is more to reflect the assessment of like how we've been doing in the training program. And I did well, and I don't see any trouble giving GI boards at all.
Okay. So by regulations, you either need to pass a specs exam or pass your board examinations before licensure.
Okay.
According to our regulations. Dr. McClendon, do you have any comments? Questions, Dr. McClendon?
No.
Wait. What's the
What's the acronym SPEC?
Special purpose examination.
that the specs exam? I had to take. I'm board certified in anesthesiology, and I came in the grandfather period. I don't have to redo my anesthesiology boards because they were so long ago. But in order to get a license in Alabama, if you have not had an exam in 10 years of some variety, you take the specs exam. And there was no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I had to take it if I wanted an Alabama license. And yeah, it's $1,300. You schedule it. You can get it scheduled within a couple of weeks. It's given in different places, different locations. The results come back pretty quickly. And it's a lot of questions that the Federation of State Medical Boards considers kind of elementary to most people who practice medicine, particularly if you practice primary care.
So if he was board certified, he would not have to take this back.
Correct.
If he'd maintained
If it
his
was-
internal medicine, if he'd taken, retaken his boards in 18,
Right. He hasn't passed any certified exam.
in over 10 years, exactly. So,
Once he becomes board certified in gastroenterology,
then he'll be eligible.
Correct.
Correct.
So it's kind of the if or, depends on how big a hurry you're in. And I know you said you got to go, you're supposed to go to work November 1, but we see these conflicts all the time, and people who are trying to get people in are sometimes kind of short-sighted and not looking what your real requirements are, but surely they'll work with you.
how often do they administer this pack?
During COVID, I'm not going to make any predictions.
No.
Well,
That may be a problem with their.
they have resumed, they being most test sites, have resumed COVID compliant testing.
It's all
That
done on
has-
computer.
Yeah, but they've resumed because for a while, everything shut down. Now they have processes in place and they've resumed testing. However, of course, they have half or less of the number of people that they can accommodate because of social distancing and all those other
So it's going to
measures.
take longer.
Yeah, so
It may
those
take in November.
slots are filling up. They fill up fast, and then they also had to accommodate the people who were canceled during the period of time when they were doing
Right, and
COVID.
this is September. So you have a set appointment to sit for your boards in gastroenterology?
That's right. Yes.
Okay, you have an appointment time, and that's going to be in November.
Right.
Okay. You would not be the first doctor who's had to say, I'm sorry, guys, we've got a delay. Myself included, for the same reason. And in the past. Um, do we need to sit out and discuss or what? If he's got a place, he's got a time, COVID accommodated.
Dr. McClendon, do you have any questions?
Doctor, have you looked into, we now have an alternate way of board certification with the 2-year check-in MOC assessment as opposed to taking the 10-year big board. Have you looked into that?
Right. I was not aware of that when my boards were about to get expired then, because that was something new that came into picture. And by the time I came to know, there was a deadline for that too, that has to be taken a year prior to the expiry of the board certification, something like that. And yeah, honestly, I was not aware of that. And when I came to know about it, it was past due of that time.
Okay.
And I even called ABIM about this, and yeah, they reconfirmed that I cannot take the 2-year certification at this time.
I'll take a motion.
I would move that the request be denied. Just, I feel like this is something that we're right on the cusp of getting it done. It's just a matter of timing. There's not really a true sense of urgency, and he's on the pathway, and we're talking about just a matter of a couple of months to have all of the ducks in a row and actually be fully compliant. So I think the answer is, I think it's nothing wrong with asking the question, but I just feel like this is something that wouldn't even be a topic for discussion in a 6-month period or less even.
Right, and it's not an unusual situation.
No, I mean, I like I said, nothing wrong with asking, because of course it would facilitate things. Extenuating circumstances apply, and everybody kind of makes adjustments related to that. I fully understand that. But while a waiver seems small, waivers are really a big deal, and I feel like in order to create a good justification for why we would do that, an employment or tentative employment outside of completion of the requirements, to me, doesn't justify it alone.
I agree. Dr. McClendon?
Yeah, I agree with the discussion. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we have to be compliant with our board certification and the timing of everything. And, I realize
Is that a second to the motion?
I second
Is
the
that a
motion.
second to the motion?
Yes, I second the
Okay,
motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Since I interrupted you?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, like I said, you don't ask, you don't know, but waivers are for the extraordinary circumstances with for people who, if you have extraordinary qualifications, but they don't necessarily meet United States standards, but they're still extraordinary, and there's a specific need someplace, there's a place for waivers. But this situation comes up and has hit all of us, including myself, at different times. I've just had to make adjustments with the people I was working with, and to get all my licensure things in a row. And I'm sorry, but I'm sure they'll work with you with your future arrangements there. But get your boards, and then you can finish your application process.
Sure. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, so this is, will I be applying, will I be doing like a fresh application once I get board certified, or will that be kind of an add-on to the current application process?
He's taking November, so what's the return on that, a couple of weeks after?
Usually a couple of weeks they'll know, especially now that it's computerized, but sometimes it may take up to a month, but
We can keep it open.
How long has the application been pending? Don't you have a 90-day, don't you have a 90-day rule?
okay.
Your application is still open. You just have to supply the remaining information for completion.
They'll hold it open then.
Okay.
So
And
you won't, it won't be a new application, it's the same application, just need to add that to it.
sure.
We understand that this is a little bit more than your expected delay, but at least this way, as soon as you get the information to meet the requirements, we'll be able to process things.
Okay.
I'm not saying if he wants to go ahead and expedite the process and take the specs, he can he not?
If he can get in, it's already
Yeah.
September,
I mean,
It
and
wouldn't be any
got it.
faster.
he's already got a slot in 6 weeks or so, right?
right.
Yeah.
He's already got a slot to take what he's really trained to do, so, I would rather take my board certification exam than the specs exam.
Yeah, I will definitely give my boards, and I mean, I'm not sure. So I was told that sometimes it can take up to 4 or 4 months, like late February. Sometimes I hear the results coming. That's what I saw for my seniors.
Your licensure here? No, if you have a clean application and this is the only thing that's holding you back, I think.
We would still.
Oh, for the boards, I mean.
We still need the criminal
It's gonna take
background,
about a week.
about a week, once you get
Oh.
that information back.
Okay.
A
Sure,
lot
I can
quicker
do
than
that.
it.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
No additional business.
Nothing else pending?
No, unless you want to go over tomorrow's agenda, under the board meeting tab.
Is there anything on here that we need to go through today? Mm-mm.
Unless Dan has anything.
No. We'll just plan on being here at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Wesley,
Be at Weston at 9 o'clock.
Pardon?
We'll be at the Weston at 9 o'clock.
Okay, Weston at 9 o'clock.
Breakfast.
Could I get a Zoom link for tomorrow, just in case my plans somehow change and I have some availability?
yes, I'll make certain that the audio people there has your email and telephone number.
How you doing down there, David? Having any trouble?
Just a little wind and rain, really not much. It was, we were just hanging on the left edge of the circle, and we were rather unimpressed with which we're happy about. But yeah, we've seen a lot worse.
60 miles east of you, they're not unimpressed.
That's right. That's right.